Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this Screenside chat with the creator and founder of Jurat Inc. and their Notary e-journal, Nick Colville. My name is Bill Soroka, founder of Notary Coach. I love having these conversations with Nick because he's always innovating. And a few weeks ago, when he reached out and said, "Hey, Bill, I'm ready for another Screenside chat because we got some exciting stuff coming up," I asked him what was going on. And the passion that this guy has for what he's creating got me so fired up. I can't wait to hear everything that we're going to be talking about and learning about today. For those that don't know what the Notary e-journal is, it's the by far the most innovative electronic notary journal in the country, usable in 46 states. And Nick will get into that a little bit more as we go through the presentation, but I'm going to turn it right over to Nick so we can get right into what this is and what we can expect coming. Nick, thank you so much for being here and sharing with our community.
Hey guys, thank you, Bill, for having me. Always a pleasure to reach out to you and always have had your support since the beginning when I hopped on a Clubhouse chat. I don't even know if Clubhouse is still a thing, if people still do it, but it was just nice to get such a warm welcome from the community that I've been a part of for now three commissions, and my wife five commissions worth of time. So I'm a commission notary in California. I'm not going to bore people. Fortunately, our product's been around long enough to where most people are familiar with the concept of it, at least. I am surprised. I do hear a lot of people who aren't aware yet that it's legal for people to use in the state of California. That's where I'm at, but it's not a surprise because nobody else has done it yet. We do have the digital thumbprint scanner, so that's what makes us California compliant. But that's not really the point of today. The point of today is to talk about the direction we're taking the product and some of the new features that we've developed and built. Really, when you take a step back, we came onto the market, I think in 2020 was right when we launched. And a lot of it is just seeing what the notaries want and need. And especially because we have users in 46 states, we have a lot of different rules we try to abide by, different laws, different statutes, and different needs overall as well. So, for example, when we launched, nobody could make a draft entry. And the point of this product was to be so efficient that you didn't need drafts, and people really want to draft still. So, of course, we created that functionality. And that's just a small example of making sure that we're listening to what our people need and trying to tweak the product as best we can. We get a ton of feedback from our people, and because we ask for it, I like to be communicative. So, with this presentation today, I do want you guys to remember what questions you have, what talking points you want to discuss towards the end. You could message in the chat as well too, so that you don't forget your question. I think that's something I'm guilty of. Is I will forget what I wanted to say about something, and then when I have the chance to, I no longer have the ability to remember and recall. So make sure that we drop any questions in the chat so I can address it towards the end, and I'll open it up as well at the end so we can talk about what we're doing here. But again, it's all about communication for us. And sure, some people might have requests that we haven't developed yet into features for XYZ reasons. Maybe we just haven't had the wherewithal to put development effort into it yet, or maybe for legal purposes, we don't like it. So, for example, a lot of people really want us to allow them to take a picture within the journal entry and save a picture. And that to me, that's a very gray area. I don't know how I feel about, well, I know how I feel about it. I feel very timid about it, conservative. I don't want people to be able to just snap pictures of everything. And now you have so much PII, personally identifiable information. You have the documents that people signed, you have their ID information, and now you have a picture of their face and a picture of their ID and a picture of the documents that are signed and notarized. That scares me. And so there are a lot of times where I'll have conversations with people. I'll hear them out and I'll let them know where we stand on it. But I want the feedback. It's really big for us. So I'm going to get right into discussing what we have done with this latest update. So most everybody should be on the latest update right now. We did have something that got released out last night. A lot of times these minor ones are just to fix something that was going on or minor aesthetic updates. stuff like that. So most of you guys would have gotten the latest update with the master client list, and that's the main talking point for the day. But we did add a few other things in there which are really fun to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a screen share with my phone, and I'm going to pull that up so that we can go straight into the application and discuss all the great stuff that we're doing. So here we go. Let's see here. Okay, how are we looking, guys? Do we see maybe a thumbs up? Somebody, Bill, can you give me a thumbs up? Do you see the phone?
Yep, sure can.
Awesome, fantastic. So don't worry, anybody. This is test data, so we have nothing to worry about. This is one of our test accounts. But what you guys have seen in the past year is we have a new home screen. This is instead of having you land directly on the saved journal page here with all your entries. Big reason for that. I like to give you guys insight into why we do certain things. That way we can dissect it. And I'm not trying to make your life difficult by making you click more. But what we ended up having as we've been around for so long now that we have people with a ton of data and the API calls that were being initiated upon logging in and landing on this page and loading page became just cumbersome, a bit too much. We didn't like the server activity being too high when people would land here and they would immediately try to load all of their data. So we created a more streamlined homepage, which allows you to manage where you go next, which is great. Of course, create your journal entry, view saved. You got all your drafts right there, and then any pending uploads. A pending upload would be a draft that you couldn't upload because you were offline. But take a look up here, guys. You can see this button, and this is also a new one. Now, offline mode has always been pretty straightforward. You get kicked off of the application's online server connectivity mode automatically if you have issues connecting to the server. Of course, if you're in an area that's very rural, that's going to happen. The problem we encountered was that we have certain devices, and it's difficult to make a product that works well with all Android devices and all iPhone, iPad devices, iOS devices. But what we were finding was that people were in areas where they didn't have a solid connection, and the application would bounce back and forth between online and offline too quickly, and this caused issues with server syncing. And we would have people with potential ghost drafts, or a duplicate draft would be created. And the hard part for us is trying to recreate these in a testing environment where we create server load and we create issues with server connectivity, but everybody's phone's going to respond differently as well too. So again, it might be some off-brand Android supported device that isn't very commonly used, or it might be a very popular brand new one that doesn't have a ton of support yet. And so it does create an environment where before we push a release, we're testing about 15 plus different devices. And that's a lot, but we still can't always nail it down to a science. So what we have here is we have a button that goes back and forth. If you find yourself in a place where you don't have a lot of good connectivity and the application disconnects, you're going to be here. And the only difference now is that in order to go back online, you just need to click that button to go back online. Why did we make it a manual process? So that you don't have that issue with servers trying to reconnect and disconnect and reconnect and disconnect. So now you can still create a journal entry. You will lose out on very minimal amount of features like being able to detect your current location, for example. Of course, that wouldn't work if you don't have a connection to the internet. But everything else you'll be able to do, and then you'll be able to save it as a draft. And from there, when you're ready to, you'll be able to reconnect by going there, and you're good to go. So that's the difference there. So people understand why we put that button there. It's relatively new, maybe a month or two old, but that's what it's doing there. The next thing we have, which people have responded really well to, is the practice entry. So it seems so simple, but being able to create an entry and go through the workflow. Normally, what I've told our users, just go to the end, and then at step 6, before you complete it, just go back and delete the draft. You can delete a draft. That's no problem at all. So if you just perform a long press on an entry, you'll be able to pull up what you can do with it. So for example, if I long press here, now these are saved entries. I can view it and I can strike it, which is just making it look like it's not important, like you put a line item through on your journal. And that's something that's because of the data tampering laws in place for e-journals. I can't let you just delete all of that information. That would be really, really worrisome if we allowed for that. But a draft, you can do that. So if I go into the draft section and you perform a long press on a draft, what you'll see is you'll have no problem being able to delete it and get rid of it. Now you can see I have a ton of drafts because again, we just populate tons of test data here. So a lot of times you will see, for example, I try to pull something up and it's loading all 83 drafts. I hope you don't have 83 drafts. But again, people use our product in a ton of different ways, which is great, but we want to always be careful with completing the entry. I always recommend completing that entry. But let's dig into what I really want to talk about while I'm here with Bill and showing stuff to you guys. The master client list is really, really, really cool. I'm super excited for it because it's the direction we're taking the product. But uh, let's go ahead and take a step back and look at the saved entries. They have all the information saved. They always have. If you have a signer's name, Nicholas Stephen Colville, that's my name, um, then they're associated with that entry. Now, if you notarize this person again, then now there's another Nicholas Stephen Colville entry in your journal, which is how it's always been. What we did with the back-end data structure is completely revamped it, and we're now allowing for the association of entries and data to a single master client. And so this means when you work with the same person over and over again, you'll be able to associate that information with them. So the benefits to your potential employers or your clients is going to be there because you're able to provide greater insight into what you've done, but also for you in terms of what you can view as a notary and how you can manage your own data. You could quickly and easily find that. So if you take a look at this master client list right here, why are we calling it a master client list and not a master signer list? Well, with this latest update, we have also changed or added document witnessing workflows. Right, so there's a lot of different capacities. Some states support certain things, some don't. Currently, we've had signers, we've had signature by mark witnesses, but we've really wanted to get document witnesses in because they're pretty common in a lot of states. So we've added the document witness workflow. And with this change in the data structure, we need to start looking at these people as a name that applies to either a signer or a document witness for legal purposes. We don't want to get confused. So now they are a client. They can be, of course, used in one scenario as a document witness. They can also be used in another scenario in your journal as a signer, but it's still going to be linked back to the same client. So that's why it's called the master client list, not the master signer list or the master document list. So take a look here. When we start looking at the master client list, we populate all of the entries. This has been probably the most difficult process over the past 2 months is migrating the data from where it stood as everything being sold and separate to creating these different flags. We would check and verify data against each other and then bring it all into what is now your master client list. Now, what we do here is we show you the key information, the name, how many identifications are associated with this person, how many journal entries are associated with this person, and then the potential duplicate entries you have. Now, this is going to be for most people who have been with us for a long time. If you have notarized the same person more than once, that's the potential duplicate section. And we, again, verify that data and then present it to you in a way that allows you to see if this might be an actual situation where you want to merge these two. So yes, you can merge them. We're going to go over that in just a minute. But when you click on the person, their data is going to come up and it's going to show the identification we have, which shows one of each type that we support. We cannot allow you, or we have not decided to allow you to have multiple driver's licenses right now, for example. I don't want this to turn into something we discussed earlier where there's too much sensitive information in one spot about one person. Not only now do you aggregate all of their documents that have been notarized, but all of their potential driver's licenses over the years of not working with this person. It's a slippery slope. So we have decided one of each type of ID. So there can be two if you have a driver's license and a passport, for example. They can be associated with a person. And this information being associated with a person is stuff that you can reuse quickly within an entry. So I'm going to show you guys a new workflow on step two. Sure, you guys have seen it. Instead of just adding a new signer, now you have add an existing client as a signer or add a new signer. So one more button click, but now we can actually reuse this information and make your life a little bit easier. So we have identifications. We have an audit log of events that have happened with this person within your journal. And then we have the journal entries associated with them. So, of course, you can quickly access and view any of the entries that have that person. Again, this is where a lot of the value comes, of being able to locate stuff for people or for yourself. But the implications of this, in my opinion, are pretty awesome and pretty exciting. So when you're on this page, you could also mark them as a colleague. What is a colleague? A colleague is somebody who you can just filter by as a favorite. Think of it like a favorite document or a favorite location. If you want to quickly filter by colleagues because you use this person often, somebody in your office that you notarize all the time, that's what we're going for here. And so you can mark that person as a colleague, and then boom, they're good to go. You can edit that person as well too. You can add things like a picture, which are nice. You can add their information, which gets saved here. You could add one of each identification type as discussed. And that is the client view from there. Now, let's take a look at, of course, the filtering. It's pretty straightforward, right? You could filter by if they're a colleague, how many journal entries they have, potential duplicates and whatnot. And so if you've been with us for a while, you haven't gone to this section yet, I'd recommend pulling up the master client list and then starting to look for sorting by the potential duplicates, right? And give that API a minute to load. Like I said, for the people who have been with us for a long time, there's a ton of data and information here that is currently trying to be called from the server to find out how many potential duplicates we have in this journal entry. And unfortunately for me, as I'm doing this demo, I'm giving you guys my demo account, which gets flooded with a lot of potential duplicates. So you can see here, it pulled up, these are the people who have potential duplicates. And what we could do from here is we could open them up and merge them. So what I want to do is I want to show you how the merge goes. From the beginning, I had my most recently used, which was me, and I'm going to go ahead and verify. So take a look at this process because this is an important thing to understand. Now, I am open to everyone's feedback, especially with a new change like this. So I see Jeff looking intently. I love that because Jeff always pings us with what can be better. For example, I want that because this process is not an easy one to navigate, right? We're trying to merge potential duplicates here. This action cannot be undone. So we like to make sure people understand that. And you have to pick a parent client, and then whatever you want to merge the subordinate ones. So let's take a look here because this has a ton, right? If you step back and you want to just say, look, I know this is the same person. So for me, this is my test account. I'm well aware this is the same person. Of course, there's no other Nicholas Stephen Colvilles, and we verified that name. It's not going to be anybody else. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and select the name of the parent record I want. And this is going to be the name that gets applied to the merge, right? And the name can change. And that was another big thing of the way we changed the data structure is the name of the client in your journal. You can alter the name of that by going in and editing. You could change from Nicholas Stephen Colville to Nick Colville. But the name on the identification that you save in those entries had better match based on your legal requirement as a notary to jot down exactly what is on the driver's license, for example. It had a better match, but it needs to be stolen separate, right? So the ID is going to say Nicholas Stephen Colville, but the name could be Nick Stephen Colville or just Nick Colville. And this is why we have the merge. Maybe you entered somebody's ID or somebody had a maiden name at one point, then you work for them again. They got remarried, they changed their last name, but it is the same person, right? So what you're selecting here is just the name that's going to carry over. And then you can go through and you can select, okay, I want to select the identification from this person to carry over as well. And so that's really the merging process. And it's a process that will take all that information. We're going to make sure that you are aware that you really want to do it. And then we're going to really make sure you want to do it because you can't undo it. And then we're going to go ahead and merge that information together. So this is a situation that shouldn't have to happen often. Again, most of our users who have been with us for a while, they can do this one time for the existing journal entries. And then from there, they should be good to go. Now, if you notarize somebody and you're like, I think I added them in my journal like 2 years ago, then you could go in here and you could search by potential duplicates, or you can just search by their name, pull up everybody with a name that might match. And then, of course, you can manually merge too. So if, for example, this person here, this Raj, is actually the same person as this person right here. Again, maybe it's a maiden name or a different last name, or maybe the first time the ID, which is the only information we captured last time, was the ID name. It was a long one, and now in the journal you enter them as just a shortened, abbreviated name. You can just manually select which ones you want to merge, and then you can go through that same exact process that we just discussed, where you can pick which ones you want to complete the merge with, and then merge that information together. So at that point, then it will associate all of the journal entries with that new master client entry. Now it's just going to be one of those people, and then you could view the information from there. So the master client list view is what we just saw, but now using that information or using using in a new entry, a master client entry or a master client in a new entry is what we're going to show you right now. So let's go ahead and create a new journal entry here. So the same process has been here in place for quite some time. We're going to go ahead and select the date and time of the notarization, and we'll go ahead and just load up this information here. Now, this screen has more buttons than some of you are used to. Document witnesses is a new one, and the master client here, adding the existing client. So both times you click on that and you can go and have a fork in the road. I'm going to add a new document witness, or I'm going to add an existing client as a document witness. Same is going to go for adding a signer, right? So there is one more click here. I do apologize. It used to just go straight to here. And this is how that process would work. Now we have this option right here. So now if I am just seeing the same person again, which is, again, going to be applicable to people who do the same people often. And there are certain notaries who are only commissioned because their boss made them do it. And this is what they do, is they just notarize people in the office. So this will be super easy for them. They could easily just search for the people and find them however they like. If you need to search by name, of course, you could always do that. And once you click on that person, this is the person I want to use. Okay, great. How are you going to identify the signer? You still have to do that. And one of our biggest things here is not allowing the technology to get ahead, so far ahead to the point where notaries are no longer complying with their laws because we enable them to do things maybe a little bit too quickly or too rushed, or maybe they just weren't being attentive enough. I don't want to be able to allow you to too quickly add information in that you're supposed to see or capture. This is also why we don't save the signature and allow that to just be populated in. Of course, that would be incredibly illegal in the majority of states, and not all of them. But if we allowed people to, I'm sure people would accidentally or inadvertently do so. So in this case, you can identify them with an identification, which is most common, right? Just an ID. You can do personally known and credible witnesses again. Now, let's say that I'm going to go ahead and use an identification for this person. And we're going to pull up the saved IDs that they have. Right? This is where you're going to find their list of, they have a driver's license, only one of each type, passport, military ID, etc. If you're going to use that to identify them, you click on that, and it's going to go ahead and put that person into the entry for you. Now, we give you this legal notice for that purposes I just described. I don't want this to get out of hand, and I don't want people to come back and look at us and say, well, this app did it this way, and I didn't know I had to see the signer's ID. Well, for most of you guys, if you're seeing an ID, a tangible ID, you probably have to by law and notate some of that information. So we give you one final acknowledgement, and then here we go. This person is now in here, and they have their identification associated. So you no longer have to either manually enter that ID again, or you don't have to scan that ID again. Right. So if I were to do that in real time faster so that you guys don't think it takes too long, I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and click this, and I'm going to add the identification that belongs in here, and we're good to go. This person's now been added. You can manually enter a new ID at that same point in time if needed, of course. You could do personally known and all that stuff. So that is the difference here on this step 2. And the information that gets passed through, again, is mostly the ID information and the naming information, and then the association with whatever entry is created. Now, document witnesses, let's take a look at this here. I'm going to add somebody who also works in the office as a document witness. So this person, you see here, they don't have the ID saved. And so we're going to have to put that information in. And I'm just typing on a whim here. I can't remember the name of that fake signer that we added in. If you need no identification, you can do that as an ID type to make things easier for your life. But you'll notice there was no personally known on that workflow. And I would, if this was an open session, have somebody raise their hand and ask them why, and I don't know, give them something. But I'll just ruin the surprise for you. It's a document witness. So personally known as a form of identifying a document witness isn't something that is supported, because it's not something that is necessarily needed. So you can add the ID information here. You could add some of it, none of it for this document witness. And then we can move forward here. So now we have a situation where we have multiple capacities. And this is the big change in this data structure that I'm really trying to get in front of everybody is the capacity of this client is now greatly more versatile, either a signer or document witness. I'm going to move forward here and go to the documents. Everybody knows adding the documents and the fees. But let's see what happens when you add the documents. I'm going to add 3 documents. And this here is an important thing to point out to everybody. Signers have always and always will still persist automatically on the document so long as they were added prior to the document being added. So for example, I added the signers first on step 2. That's why we do it in this order. Step 2, add signers. Step 3, add documents. And that way we can associate them. You can always disassociate them. I could always remove this person. This person's not signing the document. They are a title-only spouse, for example. So we provide that functionality, and it makes it super easy for you to do journal entries for loan signings, for example. People love it. But by default, the signer is going to be associated with the document. But the document witness is going to be automatically not associated with all given documents. That would be probably a really big chaotic mess because maybe there's only a document witness for one of the documents, maybe the mortgage document or whatever it might be in your state. And if we just immediately associated them with every single document, it would just get really messy for that data hierarchy in the back end. And then for legal purposes, you'd probably be doing it incorrectly. And so you do want to make sure when you're doing the document witness that you go in here and you mark that person as a document witness and then move forward. So let's take this for example. Now you saw when I added that document witness, I had the information available for adding their location, their ID information, and their signature. Now we do that even though most signatures are captured on step 4. So signer signatures have always been and still will be captured on step 4. But there's a lot of situations in which, again, you might have a document witness who is only there for a certain amount of time and only for 1 or 2 of the documents, not for the entire signing session, for example. So you got an hour or 2-hour loan signing appointment. The document witness probably doesn't want to be there for the whole time, nor are they legally obligated to be. So quite often you'll have a situation where the document witness comes in and does their job and then skedaddles out of there. So in that case, I don't want people to accidentally forget to capture that signature. So we allow you to and present it to you on step 2 when you add them as a document witness right in the beginning. So that way you can get the information you're legally obligated to from that document witness, send them on their way. And then when you get to step 4, great. Well, the signers are still there because of course they are. You capture that information and you are good to go. So that's why we did it. This page, you'll see we just added a few pieces of information that I just discussed here, just to make sure we clarify. Fingerprints, as always, in California, if you want them. And then there you go. We have all that information here. We have the flags for no signatures being added. I think a lot of people have just jam past step 6. Not that I blame them. But then a lot of people say, I wish I was reminded because I forgot that signature. So it's always on our list maybe to think about ways to help people remember without creating too much friction for everybody else. We don't want to create so many clicks that all of a sudden people hate our product because they have to click 8,000 times just to create an entry. So master client list is huge for the change in the way the data is structured on the back end. And that's why it's taken so long for us to perfect this process. I don't even know if I would be um, ignorant enough to say that we have perfected it. It's a process still, making sure that we can handle that data securely, safely, which is our priority, but then associate it correctly with where it's supposed to go. And it's very exciting because this change in data allows us to move forward with a lot of the changes that we want to make, which is another level in the hierarchy of data. And that's going to be an admin type account that allows you to associate potentially multiple notary journals across multiple different offices. Then this is more for an enterprise type solution. But the goal here for you guys to see as transparent as I can be is to give you more insight and access to the data that is in your journal and allow you to better control it, better visualize it, and just do more things with it. Now, the mobile application doesn't have a lot of the cool widgets that we do give you on the web app, so make sure you do check that out. That's all matched up to what we have here in terms of the functionality of the new master client list. And I guess the last few things to discuss, you can of course add a client on a whim if you want. You could add them ahead of time right here. This is one of the other tricky areas. And again, I want the recommendations from people as you guys have been using this. My biggest fear with allowing people to add a new client is to inadvertently alter people's assumptions on how the product works. For example, I don't want somebody, if they don't want to, mind you, to have a signing appointment tomorrow and then to go into our application and to think that they need to add that client here manually and then use that client as an existing client on step two the following day when they're at the notarization appointment. And I don't want to make this process very cumbersome. And that's why the process of creating clients is twofold. You can add a new client this way, but it just happens automatically as you create a new entry moving forward. And that's, I think, the biggest thing I want to stress for people is you don't need to do anything different. Everybody you add in any capacity is going to be added immediately as a master client entry in the list itself. And so if I add a new signer here, call him Joe Schmoo, and I'm just going to go ahead and personally know this guy. And he looks good. So Joe Schmoo, he is now a signer. And I'm going to go ahead and finish out the entry. Although when you hit the next button, which I already hit, they're already added into the master client list. I just don't want to add any more drafts, and I need to leave them hanging, and then it takes 10 minutes for me to load. So Joe Schmoo, here we go. I just created an entry, the same process I always have. I'm in front of the client. I just finished a notarization. I just scanned their ID. I just did all that stuff. And now I can go into the master client list, and Joe Schmoo is there. And their entry is there as well, too. Right, so I am doing my best to find the best ways to educate people on this in an attempt to prevent people from being confused and thinking they have to manually add that client in before being able to use that person. I don't want that to be the case. That would horrify me. The point of this is to be streamlined and fast. So again, just do the thing you normally do, but now you have more things you can do, which is really cool. But in this case, the person's already going to be automatically added, which is great. Now, if you were to try to delete this person, I don't know if anybody would want to take a guess. You could just do it mentally on if we're going to allow you to do that. Um, the answer is going to be maybe. Not if they have any journal entries associated with them. All right, so Joe Schmoo does have a journal entry associated with them, and so Joe Schmoo cannot be deleted. Right? These are to really safeguard and prevent the notary from accidentally becoming non-compliant with their state laws by allowing them to delete information and data that they are legally not allowed to delete or tamper with. Right? And so we really try to be as thoughtful as we possibly can by preventing certain actions from being taken. But if I added Joe Schmoo to my stuff here. Now, Joe Schmoo 2 is a new one. I just manually created him. Joe Schmoo 2 does not have any journal entries associated with himself. So I have no problem being able to delete Joe Schmoo 2. And he is deleted, but we have an archived client area as well too for you to see. And so what we want to do is we want to provide you with the ability to um, merge and delete if you're allowed to delete, but then still access some of that information right here. So here you can see Joe Schmoo plus all of the different things I've merged in the past, all that stuff is going to show up here. So yes, you deleted them, but the data still persists in many ways that allow you to stay compliant, and you're no longer running the risk of deleting information you shouldn't have. In many of these cases here, all you can do, of course, is go in and just view the information that was pertaining to this client, and then take a look at the audit log. We show you that this person was merged, right? So one of the big things we've always had is the audit log. This is something that makes us unique compared to any other product on the market, which there are very few anyways. But the audit log has always been for transparency purposes and for legal purposes. If you are in court and you can provide more information to the people who are requesting it, then it's probably going to be better for you as a public servant, and the services you provide to your community to give more insight into your journal entry, for example. I think a lot of people have the mindset that anytime my journal is being looked at, it's a negative thing and it's an audit and it's bad. And for most of us notaries that have had entries requested outside of an audit, it's for a useful purpose. And many times trying to prevent fraud, for example. So the audit log has always been important, and now there is a sole and separate audit log for the actual things that happen with the client itself. So this allows you to keep track of what's going on with your client's activities. When you merge them, you can see all that information there. So the archived section is where the deleted and merged people go. And that is everything that I can think of off the top of my head that has been added in most recently. Master client, document witnesses. We added some fee stuff, but then the testing environment as well too, which is really fun. And so that I don't run the risk of going for too long, I'm going to go ahead and see if anybody wants to ask any questions, or open up the discussion. Maybe there's some confusion, or maybe there's just some input. Anything that people have right now, if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, or if you want to put it in the chat, I'd love to be able to discuss it. I'm always just worried that I am under explaining things. So Jeff, what do we got? Let's go ahead and
Yeah, thanks.
unmute.
I just
Yeah,
have,
Jeff.
so can you hear me? Am I coming
Yep,
in?
you're good.
Uh, Okay, good. So on the master list, um, I feel it takes longer to type in somebody's name there to find them in the list than just add them in there. I mean, I've been just adding, I haven't been searching for anything. Is that going to cause me issues or something or not?
No, so I would recommend if you know that you're using this person again, for more than one time. If you know that you've signed this person before, I would search for the name and add them in, for the purposes of associating the data. You can manually do that process at any point as well too. So it's not like you are unable to associate that data at a later point in time. But I guess my question to you is, when I look at the process of creating a new journal entry, I'll jam through step one here, and now we're on step two. Now, in terms of it taking longer to search for somebody's name, if I were to go here and add a new signer, then what you're probably doing is clicking this button and then scanning right away, scanning the ID right away. So you're moving pretty quick, and that's how we've always done. You don't have to type their name in here, of course. You can just add ID and then scan it, which is great. But I guess if I'm looking for that person and I already know them, I can't imagine that it would be um, overly more cumbersome, other than just maybe new and different for you to do. Um, but I
Well,
think
yeah, no, it is new and different, but the other issue that I could run into, not that it happens all the time, is being outside of internet range. Because don't you have to
Oh,
be
yeah.
connected to search for names on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So you do need
Yeah.
to be connected. So if you're not, and you just create that entry, so say you as a notary, you're like, I don't want to go with this workflow of using an existing client, even if I know that I've done that before. Um, then you could always just go in here, and again, you can search for potential duplicates, and then you can merge them manually. So the question you might have is that easy? Is that even prudent? Is it a recommended practice from me? Yes, it is. And that's for you to be able to associate the data with the same person who's already been in your journal before. I think there's a benefit there. Is it a legal requirement? No. Is there anything wrong that's going to happen within your journal? No. So it's not definitely not a requirement legally or functionally speaking. But I think that you would be missing out on the benefit of that data linkage, if that makes sense.
It doesn't, but I don't have a problem linking the data, not a problem. I was just curious because I find it easier to scan the ID than search for somebody because it seems like searching for things, or at least with the my devices, it takes a while. It slows down the process. So that's the only thing that I
And we lost Jeff.
Yeah, speaking of bad connection,
Yeah. Hey,
yeah.
Nick, I think this would be a really good time because there's a couple of questions in the chat, and I see some people from
Mhm.
states where they may not be able to use the Notary e-journal. So can you tell us the four states that do not yet allow electronic journal?
We have, oh gosh, let me pull up my website so I don't speak
I know two of them
incorrectly.
because it's the ones that I lived in,
Yeah,
but that's
yours. Yeah, we have. So, and the biggest thing I think that I will preface with that, without getting too much into that. A cool thing too, you could just go to our. Here we go. If you go to our website, it's really cool because we do have a map of compliance, which is really fun. So the map of compliance is a place where you can
okay.
get the information for the requirements by that state, and then you could see here the blue states are the states where it's conditionally compliant. And the reason we use that verbiage is because none of these states prohibit the use of an e-journal. They just don't typically allow it for a direct and sole replacement for a tangible journal for tangible in-person notarizations. So, for example, Washington State um, it could be used as a secondary, as a backup, or if you are in a state that has, for example, electronic notarization capabilities, you're typically always allowed to create an entry in an electronic environment as well too, but not as a replacement for the tangible in-person entry that has to be created for tangible in-person notarizations. And so I don't like to use the verbiage of like, no, you can't use it, but these are the four states: Washington, Nevada, Arizona. Missouri is kind of on the fence as well too. I haven't checked theirs in a while. I should update. And Hawaii was just changing theirs too. So those are the states where you would just want to always make sure that you double, triple, quadruple check if you are looking for this as a direct replacement for the hardbound for tangible in persons. I know it's a much more roundabout answer, Bill, than you were looking for, but I
Oh,
like to be as
no,
correct as I can be.
yeah, that's great. I appreciate that because, and even though Kim's from Arizona, so there's that little bit of challenge there, she still has a great question that others might have in other states too. Because she says, how do we upload the picture of the ID to signing service portals? So is there a way to do that? Is there a reason you don't do that?
Great. Yeah, thank you for asking that second question. There is not a way to do that because you cannot do that. And Kim, that goes back to um, the fear that we have, or the conservative nature we have of allowing you to do too much with this one single product. We don't like being able to allow you to house too much PII, personally identifiable information, in one spot, especially now that we are going into a digital age. So you could, of course, get the information from the ID, hence the scanning, pull the data. But if we allowed you to then capture it, which we could do, it's not something that we can't do. I just am conservative with allowing people to do it And especially if the purposes of it are to be able to reproduce an image that is usable in any form whatsoever, Kim. So I know you're like, gosh, you're making my life difficult. But it's probably, in my opinion, for good reason for our job as a notary public. You could always just, open up your phone's camera and snap the picture, which is what I think the most people do if they're trying to get a copy of the ID for printing or for getting to the signing service or whatnot. Now, don't take that as a recommended best practice, but that's what I think most people do when they're in that type of situation, and they need to provide an actual reproduction of the ID. If they just take a picture on their phone, we don't allow you to do that on purpose, and that's why. So don't hate me, Kim. But I don't want to say I'll never allow that functionality. It's taken me many years to even say that I don't want to ever allow it to happen. Right? It truly is just the safeguards that we're trying to put on the product so that we don't have a situation where, oops, my account, was compromised, and now all of a sudden, all of this information is in a position where it's usable in any nefarious way whatsoever. That scares me with the way fraud is, and it makes me worried. So Kim, I hate that I don't let you do it, but yeah. But I do see you have. Is there a master trash folder we can go to empty? If the appointment is canceled, can we delete? Yes, you can delete drafts. Absolutely. I'm trying to answer all of these here, but I don't know if there's any others.
Nick, we have a hand up actually.
Oh, thank goodness. Awesome. Who do we got?
Hi, Brenda. Hi, Brenda. Come on up.
Okay. Well, if I understood him correctly, our state, Washington, we're not allowed to use this. Is that right?
He doesn't like to use that word, right?
Oh, well,
correct. Correct.
Okay. Because that changes my question, but I'll say it anyway. Maybe it'll affect some other state. But in our state, that if you retire or quit being a notary public, you have to turn in your journal. So that's fine for a paper journal, but if you're using the electronic journal, does that mean you'd have to print out all the signings you did?
So this is so I guess we're starting to field a lot of more generic questions, which are great. I don't mind at all. It depends on where you're returning it. And so the hard part, Brenda, here is that you do have, in California, for example, you have to go to the county commissioner's office where you're commissioned, not a Secretary of State's office, for example. And then our recommendation is to ask them how they would like to receive the files. Will they allow you to deliver them via PDF, which is the file format that we allow you to export in? If so, then great. You can digitally deliver those entries. If they are saying, hey, gosh, we need it printed out, in that set of situations, then you would need to print them out, right? So I think we are in that state where, as a product, the adoption over the past 5 years before we came on the market, there wasn't a very good viable product, especially for states like California, right? We're still the only ones compliant with California. And so these situations and questions never even arose, even though state law allows you to use it. It puts our notaries in a position where we need to make sure that they can get the guidance from the governing body that is requiring them to do XYZ action. And in this case, it's the delivery of the entries, right? Many states don't have any delivery instructions or requirements legally, but many do. So again, California, it's going to be your county where you got commissioned. And we've had notaries go to certain counties and say, you'll hear everything across the board. So it's hard for us to give advice. We've had notaries say that they told me not to turn in anything, and that they're not collecting it, and they reach out to the Secretary of State's office. That was a strange response. We've had some to say we were told to print it out, and we delivered it via printed it out. We've had some say that they allowed us to email it to them, and they were fine with that. And so it really is kind of all over the place, and that's because of the nature of being a product used in so many different states, and the state's legal requirements might be at the county level for retention of those entries. You can always export your entries via PDF. We're currently rebuilding the bulk exporting features to allow you to just do it like in one touch to make it super, super easy. But the PDF format digitally is what we currently provide, and that is sufficient for the majority of use cases. One thing I don't like is I don't like how much paper that could require you to use when you're printing. Now, fortunately, as notaries, especially like a signing agent, we're used to printing out 200-page packets multiple times a day. So ideally, you have a pretty solid printer in place or a printing solution in place. But I still don't like it. It doesn't make me feel good when I hear that a notary had to print it out. So we are currently working on better, more streamlined templating for that data export as well too, so that it doesn't take up so much room on the PDF format. That's something we're always trying to kind of get nailed down. Fitting all that information in, including the audit log, which we think has a ton of value. So we're currently working and perfecting that still. And I wish the answer was a bit more black and white for you, Brenda, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into how we've had our notaries handle this over the years.
It does. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, Nick. Coffee Tina came in a little bit late, but she just wants to make sure she uses Notary Act in Illinois right now. So she's just curious on Notary eJournal with Jurat. Can she save multiple drafts with this journal?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So Notary Act is probably the most widely used product outside of ours. They were the only ones on the market prior to us launching. A lot of people know our backstory. They were the reasons why we created the product. I didn't like their solution, and of course, it wasn't compliant in California. So we created this product, and when we launched the draft feature, it was a no-brainer. Of course, you can create drafts, a million of them. And I was surprised to hear that Notary Act had some tiered subscription price for you to do X amount of drafts. I find that very strange. You'll notice our subscription prices, we don't tier them just across the board. You're either going to pay for the product and you're going to get everything that we offer to you, or you're not going to pay for the product and you're not going to get the offerings, right? We do retain the data, even if you have an account. So if you have a subscription for 2 years and then you back out and you stop paying, we're not going to manually delete that data unless we're explicitly instructed to. You just won't be able to access it until you have another active subscription. So that's the way we do it. We don't tier it at all because I don't like that. Draft, you can have as many as you want. I talked to somebody the other day and they have a ton of drafts. Now, I'll tell you for one, just as a quick kind of side story as to why I recommend you complete your entries and don't let them exist as drafts too long. I talked to a notary last week who said that she keeps them as a draft past the event so that she can do QuickBooks later and finalize everything, make sure it's all in there before hitting the complete button and marking it as saved, which will permanently close it on the server. You can't alter it anymore. Well, of all the strange fluke accidents, she was reviewing the entry. She was on step 2. She saw the signers. She tripped. She started to fumble. Her phone started to fall. She went to grab it. As she went to grab it, she accidentally hit the remove signer button. It removed the signer from the entry, which removed all of their associated information, their signature, their ID, and their thumbprint. And that was an action that couldn't be undone. And she called me panicked, and it made me feel horrible. So what you're going to see in the next couple of months is, if you try to remove a signer, there's going to be multiple clicks involved to make sure that you have a little bit more of a safeguard. But these are the kind of stories that we hear that I just look at and say, okay, well, maybe 1 in a million is going to happen again, but let's make sure that doesn't happen again, because I don't like knowing that somebody lost information and now they have to go back out and see that person again. It's just a lose-lose for everybody, right? But this also could have been prevented if it wasn't a draft. If it didn't get saved as a draft for too long, and you marked it as complete at the time of notarization when you were most likely legally obligated to or should have, that problem also could have been prevented. I guess that was a tangent side story about drafts. You can have as many as you want. You saw my test when I was opening my test account, I had like 83. The more you have, the more it's going to take to load. So be mindful of that, of course. We do have a lot of people who say, gosh, it's taking forever for my draft to load. And I said, how many drafts do you have? And she said, well, like 150. And I said, well, oh boy, that's a lot of drafts. So just things to consider, but we don't tier the usage and we don't tier the draft count. Hopefully that is a roundabout way of answering it in a
very clear, Nick. Thank you very much.
Very fulfilling manner, yes.
All right. So Teresa has a very practical question. She says, for loan signings, is it possible to get the document witness information for loan signings ahead of time in the app in case the document witness doesn't stay till the end and then go back and finish the journal entry at the end of the signing?
So yes, but I guess the question is subjectively, how long is right? How long is ahead of time? Right, that's because you can add them at any point in time if you'd like. So when I'm here, and let me go ahead and show you, Teresa. Thank you for asking the question, by the way. Um, when I'm here, and say I go to create a new entry, right? So I'm creating that new entry, and I'm going to go ahead and now, right now, the signer and the document witness are in front of me. So we're adding the information of what's going on here, and say again that they're not going to be here for a very long time. Great, add them right here, jam it out really quick, capture their signature, capture their ID information if you want, move forward. I mean, at this point, you have everything you're legally obligated to, most likely, right? If you wanted to capture that signature, you might not have even been required to by law for the journal entry portion of it, because the document witnessing on the document is probably going to be different than any legal requirement to capture document information in the actual journal itself. So always make sure that you look at that. But in this case, they can go already as long as they've done their legal obligation on the document itself as well. So you could do it ahead of time as well. If you created a draft and you were privy to the name of the person, you could add it in here, and then you could, add their identification later. But I think it really does come down to, Teresa, like what is ahead of time. And in this case, they could be gone. Now you could add the signers here, go through that process, and then go to the next step, add the documents, go to the rest of the signing appointment with the actual person with the signers, and you'd be good to go. That document witness could have gone a while ago. So
you know what I love about that, Nick, is a lot of us use the same witnesses over and over and over again. So this master client list makes that so easy, right? You just find the same witness information, you just add them right in there.
Yes, absolutely. And that again, that is the goal here, is get you to benefit from the data that already exists in your journal. In this case, this person's already there. Let me just plug and play with the information I'm legally allowed to, not the SIGs, not the thumbprints. But you could just jam it out. And then again, if you ever need to look back, say, for example, you're trying to invoice somebody and you invoice at the end of the month, and you do in the office the same person 10 times and you provide it to your employer at the end of the month. Well, great. You could just pull up that one person, easily aggregate all that information, and that way you could provide that invoice. So it makes it pretty easy. Pam, what do you got?
Yes. Back to I mean, I'm in California. If we needed to print off our journal entries, I think I talked to you a few months ago about I think you mentioned that it's better to leave them as they are and not download them into our document, like our computer. Is that true?
So yeah, our recommendation on that, just as a data safety practice, is if you were to want to keep some type of digital form for yourself outside of what's being hosted on our servers, right? And our servers are most likely going to be in great shape in terms of the security and the encryption we use, as opposed to what's just sitting on your computer, which is why I don't like it if you just download the PDF, right, you just put it into your folder. But as a recommendation, if you did want to do that, just buy an external hard drive, the one that you can plug in. Once you plug it into the computer, you can export the PDF to that hard drive. And then when you're done, you can safely unplug it, make sure you go through the correct disconnection process for the hard drive itself. And then you have that digitally, but on a disconnected hard drive. And that is a great way if you were to want to go about doing it this way. Now, again, is it required? No. If you want to do it at the end of every month, at the end of every year, if you were just done with your subscription and you wanted to just bulk export, once that feature is back up and running here pretty shortly, then you can just dump it all there. It really comes down to just making sure that you are aware of the way you're doing, asking questions, being aware of how safe and secure is it. And a lot of it is just not knowing any better. A lot of people would think it would be safe if they just downloaded that PDF, and then all of a sudden there are hard drive crashes on the computer, and data loss is prevalent. And
So I do have a hard drive that I keep plugged in to back up my computer, but it would be better if I was going to do that to get a separate hard drive just for that.
absolutely, that would be my
Okay.
recommendation. And then I would recommend further on top of that, to take that hard drive when you're done and put it in a
Got it.
locked and secure area. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough because, like California says, keep your journal in a locked and secure area under your
Right.
exclusive control. Exclusive control. It's but it's tricky. I mean, your house is locked. Okay, well,
Right.
where are they going to draw the line, right? I've heard of notaries and they're
Right.
like, it was in my trunk, and now it's fine for the audit, right? So yeah, the trunk's locked, and it was just fine. So it is
Right.
tricky. But always reach
Okay.
out, Pam. Obviously, I
Yeah.
recognize your name. You've been with us for years, so
Mhm.
just reach out and let me know what questions you have.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
All right, last call for questions. Let's see. Oh, Teresa says, can we take pictures of the notarial acts we perform for clients and add them to the journal entry? I think you addressed that kind of at the beginning, right, Nick? We're not
I
doing
did,
that.
Teresa. This is why people hate us. Yeah, I know. Because we won't let you do it. But Teresa, it's just a security thing for too much data in one place. If we allowed you to take a picture of the notarial act, again, in my opinion, I think it's too much to have something that can be reproduced in any manner that can be used in a nefarious way like that. So we don't allow you to take any pictures right now. Again, I bounce back and forth. We think about it often, allowing people to, but it really does change the way that the data is being hosted. So how much is that going to increase the overall data storage of these user accounts? We've only gone through, for example, one price increase, and I never want to have to do that again unless there's a new type of account, like an admin type account, for example. Um, but I don't want to have to tier subscription. I don't want to have to look at an incredibly large amount of influx of data because now we allow you to save pictures, for example, or then how many pictures are being saved to an entry, and it just opens the floodgates. And is it worth it? That's a rhetorical question. I don't know. But Teresa, at this point, you cannot. And I appreciate you being so understanding. Thank you, Teresa. Guy, I see your hand up too. And Guy, great to hear from you again. You're always equally fantastic with your feedback and everything. So, Guy, what do you got for me?
Thank you. I am having a difficulty uh, putting information in on a step and then going back and it's missing. So, for an example, if I'm sitting in a prison waiting for an inmate to come, I can do a lot of the work, but I don't have his ID. So I don't have that information to put in right away. But if I go through and I know that I'm there to do a power of attorney and I select that POA, when I go back to put his information in, the POA is no longer selected. It's gone. It's as if backstepping erased it. What's causing that?
So, it's a tough one. I'd have to try to see what's going on with reproducing it. You're saying that a document you added on step 3
Mhm.
was gone at a later point in time. Now, the entry was still a draft, but you went
Correct.
back into the entry and it was gone. Am I
So,
understanding the
so, so I selected the document. Then my client shows up at the table, and I want to go back and put his information in. When I return to page 3, there is no indication that I selected the document.
So, when's the most recent time this happened to you?
Oh, within the last week, I'm going to say. It's a good guess, Nick. I don't honestly know.
So, one thing we did change maybe a month ago, and it may have been from you or somebody else bringing it up, is that, normally the draft saved only on hitting the next button. And so we did have people who would say, gosh, I would put the notary fee in And then we changed this button to say save and exit. It used to just say history. They would hit the history button, and then they would go back to the main screen. Well, the history button wasn't activating and initiating the API that would save the information on the current screen. That required a next button to be pressed, right? And so that maybe changed maybe a month ago, or maybe with this most recent release, where the save and exit button will initiate the API call that will save everything on that page, even if it's changed or altered. But I mean, I'm right here on step 3. If I add a document, I'd have to try to reproduce it, which I can try to. But if I add a document, now I have a deed of trust, and I hit the save and exit button. That's why I'm asking, maybe when's the last time it happened? Maybe it's been a while.
I don't really remember, Nick. The other thing I would do is fill in the fees, go backwards to put in the signer's information. When I would get back to page 3, the fees would be gone.
Yeah, so that sounds like what we just talked about, which is, we changed the way the API call works to save that data on that page for people who move backwards. So that issue is taken care of, and you shouldn't have it anymore. If you experience it, please let me know, because I want to know.
Okay.
But you can see here the data is persisting between step 2 and step 3, and now the button does say save and exit. It activates that API call, and it'll save that data on the screen prior to exiting that draft. And so it may have been a situation in which you were on the older version that didn't have that implemented yet, because that's maybe a month old. But any type of situation like that, it deals with data loss, which is a huge issue. So make sure you do reach out, and if you can reproduce the steps you took, I can try to reproduce it here. Obviously, you can see here it seems to be working fine, but that's unfortunately the case. Most times we have tech support, which is the problem's fine when I try to look at it, and then the moment I'm off the phone, it pops
Same
back
way
up.
when you take your car in to have it fixed, it's just fine.
Exactly.
Every time. Every time.
All right. So what
Every
is the
time.
latest version?
2.20, 2.0.20, if I'm not mistaken. That just got released yesterday.
Okay. And here's something that I would like, to me, the flow would be better, is immediately after I've scanned their IDs, I'd like the next step to be where they sign, and the step following that to be where their fingerprint is taken, and then record the documents and the fees. And I bring this up because I've had 2 occasions in a notarization where a customer looked at the document, said, I'm not going to sign that. And then they wouldn't sign the journal. And since we're required in Colorado to have the signer's signature in the journal, regardless of whether they complete the notarial act or not, it would be helpful if we were collecting that information before we got to the documents, where they perhaps would say, oh no, not going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And you brought that up before, Guy, and I think one thing we've looked at is potentially allowing users to consider each step as a module and plug and play where you want the data to be collected, to give you some more fluidity. Yeah, I know that more than one person has asked for something like that. For example, it just does get tricky with the way the data is structured, because I don't want to skip something that requires other data for that step. For example, documents require signers. You can't add a document unless you have somebody from step 2, right? And so we need to put some safeguards in that, but it's not the first time you've mentioned it, and somebody else has as well too. So it's not falling on deaf ears, even though you probably think it is. Keep bringing it up to me. Keep being the bug in my ear, and that way we could find a solution that works for you without changing it in a way where everyone else hates me for it.
Yeah. Same thing. I think it would be a smoother flow if I could select all the documents before entering the notary fee.
I mean, you could. It's on the same page, right? So it is on step 3. I don't know if that's cumbersome to anybody else. I would love the feedback whenever people have problems with it. If I'm on step, here, and I'm jamming through it, I go to step here. I'm just going to go ahead and make it as quick as I can here. Genodo, here we go. Step 3 has it all here, right? So the fee section is higher, sure, on the page, but you could add these documents here, and then you can add the notary fee on top. That probably isn't what you want. So it tells me that there's something that we should probably look at, but you could do that on the same page. Yeah, guy?
Yeah, I understand. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Part of Colorado's new issue with the Secretary of State is requiring us in our journals to record any ancillary costs. And so if we've printed documents that we're charging for, if we're mailing the documents for them, we have to record all of that in our journal. And those fees would be easier to do after all of the documents were entered.
Got it. So one thing we are adding, and I think this is because of people like you who have brought it up, right? You can see here I added we have different additional fee types and stuff. If you were to leave these blank and you go to step 6, one thing we are adding that's not in this release yet, but it will be soon, is an edit button right here. So this is step 6 review. This is the last step, and we're adding an edit button for documents and notes, for fees, and as well too. And I think it's probably from you and other people who have wanted to do the fees at the end. That is coming, and that way, if you left that blank, you can come over here, hit that button. That'll pop up the fee dialog. You could address the fees at that point as well too. So hopefully, when that comes, which won't be very much longer, that is sufficient for you. But I want to keep getting it right, so keep talking to me.
And will we be able to enter fees in fractions of a dollar?
Yes, you can do that right now.
Oh, good, because we weren't able to, I know, because I'd have a fee of $2.70 to comply with the Secretary of State, but I could only select $2 or $3.
I think that was just an edge case because no one else has ever needed to do pennies before.
It's aggravating.
Yeah. But you can do that now, so you're already good.
Okay, excellent.
Awesome. And I think that really highlights what Jeff mentioned in the chat, guys, is the support at Jurat Inc. is really what they're known for on top of their innovation. You have an open line to, I mean, Nick is in that support email probably all day, every day, right, Nick?
I am. I need to be better because I'm hard on myself, and anytime I'm not able to answer a concern fast enough, it definitely makes me feel like I'm not doing my job. But everyone's always been great and understanding as well too. So we like to keep the communication channels open. Email is always the best way to get to me. But if you go, we even put the flag on the website, like it's a place where you could drop messages, but there's a thing on the top and it says, hey, look, it's not a live chat because we're a small business, right? And I can't have it staffed as much as I'd like to have it staffed. And so we do our best to handle those as best as we can. Again, a big thing for us is communication. People like Guy, people like Jeff, they've been users for a long time, Pam as well too. And you guys are constantly in our ear because we want that. We want it that way. We structured it that way. We look for that support. And that's the only way we get better. It's not just my product. It's not just for California notaries. It's for a lot of different notaries, and we got to keep making it better. So support's huge for us.
Heather, last question. Come on up.
Hey.
No pressure.
Patient, Heather, so thank you.
Is it possible to add notes to a journal entry that's been closed?
Yes. That's the only thing you can do, Heather. So you can't go in there and change much of the data, any of the data of a saved entry. So if you were to take a look at this here, if I go into my saved entries, which is it's closed out, it's white, it's completed. One thing I can do is I can still add notes to it, and that should allow you to, address any post concerns. Sometimes people want to just add something randomly at the end too, and that's totally okay. So you can do that, but you can't delete it the same way you can delete a draft. And again, that's creative scenarios where people have preferred to keep things as drafts indefinitely. And even though drafts sync to the server now, a while ago, drafts were only synced locally on the device. And then we had a situation where a user's phone died and they were like, "Where's my draft entries?" And I said, "Well, it was stored on the device. It's now dead." Right. And so all these things get us to the point where we're at now, which is a robust product. But drafts, you can do whatever you want with, including delete. And the notes section is available still post signing for the entry.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. You got it.
All right. Great questions. Nick, any closing words, comments?
I think it's going to be the same thing I always say, which is, number one, I appreciate everybody, the patience and the support, but keep the communication open because we keep working on the product. I can't stress that enough. This isn't just a one and done, and I'm not satisfied with it typically at any given point. There's always something that needs to be fixed, tweaked, improved, and especially when we make these big changes, the use cases for you guys in all these different states. If you don't like it, reach out to me in terms of like, "Oh, you added this button, why? And maybe we could do this." And then usually if you feel something, somebody else feels something as well too. And that gives us some great insight into the product. So number one, thank you guys for all the support. Number two, keep talking to us because that's the only way we can keep getting better and better. That's really what we're going for here is this to have a usable product that is going to be really enabling you to do things with the data like you haven't been able to do before. And that's what we talk about with the new data change on the back end, master client list and the reusability of clients as signers and now in multiple capacities with document witnesses. If you can't tell, it's going to be a pretty great direction for us to go in because what we can do with that data, you as a notary or as an admin, it's going to be really exciting. So you guys are incredible. Reach out if nobody has yet. I'll put my email in the chat as well too, and that way people can reach out to me if you had any questions I couldn't answer on this call. Otherwise, you guys have always been amazing.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see where you're going as usual. Thank you for bringing the value today. And thank you to all of you who joined us on a Tuesday morning or afternoon to learn something that could increase your efficiency at the signing table. Remember, time is money. Anything that can make you faster and better at this is going to help you in the long run. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.